traveling down B Street in San Diego, you come to the Union Tribune building. If you take the elevator to the 12th floor, you'll come to the lobby and the office of Steve Breen, political cartoonist for the Union Tribune. Steve's work is nationally syndicated. He's won a Pulitzer Prize in 1998 and again in 2009, and recently won an Emmy. I asked Steve if we could visit and find out how he goes about creating his cartoons and some of the other projects he's done. Steve, thank you so much for meeting with us today. We're really pleased to be here at the headquarters of the UT and getting to see it as well. And we want to find out about your job and what it is that makes your job special for you. Now, you have a background in political science.
Yes.
So tell us how that led to political cartoons.
Well, I started at the University of California, Riverside as a business major, and those statistics and accounting and economics classes weren't going so well. So I switched majors to political science, and I saw that I really was interested in that kind of stuff, you know, government and history, and my grades immediately went up. It was amazing. And around the same time, I stopped doing gag cartoons, which would be kind of like you would find in the New Yorker magazine or The Far Side.
For the university?
I was drawing cartoons like that for the university newspaper, just not as funny as those that I mentioned. And I stopped doing those, and at the suggestion of an advisor for our school newspaper, his name was Bruce Reynolds, he's a former journalist, and Bruce said, you ought to try editorial cartooning. So right around that time, midway through my college undergraduate career, I switched majors and I became kind of this wannabe editorial cartoonist.
Did they have a major for that?
No, they didn't have a major, but I found my own way to study by going into the library every chance I got and finding editorial cartoons on microfilm. Remember microfilm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So then, where was your first job?
So I started sending my cartoons all over the United States, right? I was about 20, 21, looking for some kind of internship. Couldn't find some kind of cartooning internship at a newspaper. So I graduated, couldn't find a cartooning job.
There aren't many around.
Yeah, and this is 25 years ago, and there were not that many. So I worked on a teaching credential for 2 years, all the while doing my editorial cartooning at night. And I finally found, when I was 24, a job in New Jersey, the Asbury Park Press. It's the 64th largest newspaper in the United States, and they hired me. Yeah.
Well, good.
I was 24.
And then when did you join the UT?
And then I joined the UT in 2001.
Right, so you've been there a while.
Yeah.
Now, in order to get that kind of schooling, obviously you developed kind of a cartoon brain. Where
You do have a cartoon brain. Yeah, it's funny you should say that, because that's how I describe it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of a God-given way of looking at the world. You know, you can't explain it. It's just something that was given to you. You know, it's kind of enhanced by studying other cartoons. You know, you learn some of the mechanical ways of putting a cartoon together. You know, how big to make the lettering, what things to label, that type of approach. But there's something that kind of can't be taught, I think, about being a satirist or being a humorist. You know,
right.
Something that's
and you obviously has to do with exaggeration, irony,
yes.
and all that.
Yeah, and those are the kind of things that you sort of have to have a grasp of or an understanding of, you know. On some level, that stuff can't be taught. On some level, it can be taught, but on like a deeper, more profound level, you kind of have to have a pretty decent sense of humor. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So you have that already.
I guess so.
So you have, I want to ask you what a typical day is like for you, but I also just want to ask how you form your thought. Like today's newspaper, do you look just at the big news? Because that's the one that's going to meet the most people, and you have to...
Yeah,
like
I do.
Okay.
I do. The best cartoons are on subjects that need little explanation. I find.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, I could certainly do a good cartoon, and I have done good cartoons on obscure topics, but it's more likely that the reader is going to really appreciate the cartoon if it's on something where they don't need to know, who the assistant city treasurer is, or they're not going to need a lot of background on the subject of the cartoon.
Because the attention span is you want to look at the political cartoon, get it, and laugh and move on.
Exactly. Yeah, they say 7 seconds.
Oh,
I've
wow.
heard 7 seconds.
Okay.
A reader's going to give you if they need to spend more time reading labels and bubbles and words or whatever within the cartoon, they're going to move on.
Yeah.
So that's why I like that. I really like to keep my work clean and pretty simple.
Yeah, like today's cartoon had just 3 things in it.
Right.
And so it was very easy to understand and funny, and you get it in 3 seconds.
Thank you.
Okay, so tell us about your typical day.
Well, the beauty of my job is that every day is different. So you wake up in the morning and you have no idea what you're going to draw, right? Some people ask me, do you sit down and draw the cartoons for the next several days in one afternoon? And the answer is no. I'm just doing everything I can to survive for that day, meaning to meet my deadline at 4:30. So I get in around 9 and 10, somewhere between 9 and 10, and I immediately check the big stories of the day because, again, those are most likely the topics that are going to inspire me, that are going to give me stuff to work with. And those are also the topics that are most likely to be understood by the readers. And it just so happens that it's the president who's usually at the center of those big stories. Not always, but a lot of times, Not just Trump, but, the president is really the center of American politics, right? Even though we have 3 branches of government, he's kind of the main dude. And typically cartoons kind of gravitate around the president. I will start looking at those big topics online and just write down what the big stories of the day are. Then I'll read newspapers. I'll look through our newspaper, the LA Times, Wall Street Journal. Then I will talk to my editor. This is around 11:30. I'll talk to my editor about what we're writing for the next day, what editorials we're writing for the next day. Maybe talk to some colleagues about what's going on in the news. After lunch, I'll come back and it's time to get more serious, where I have to really start worrying about that 4:30 deadline that's fast approaching. I'll start sketching in the afternoon. I'll look at my pad where I've written the big stories, and I will come up with pencil sketches of 4 or 5 or 6 of the big stories of the day. About 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, I'll show those to my editor, and he will pick the one he thinks works, and we'll kind of agree on which one that is. Usually if there's disagreement, it's very civil, and we work it out. And then I have to have that thing inked and colored by 4:30, 5 o'clock.
And some of it you do on your computer.
Yes, I ink it by hand. I'm old-fashioned in that regard. So I have paper and pens with India ink, and I do the pen work, and then I erase any pencil lines, make it all nice and pretty. Then I scan it. Then I add color in Photoshop. Yeah.
And push send.
And push send, and it goes to Los Angeles, where it's printed. Trump has been fantastic for editorial cartooning. I used to say that I was really lucky having Arnold Schwarzenegger as our governor, because he was the greatest subject. But Trump has proven to be the greatest editorial cartoon subject. The old-timers used to say that Nixon was the best guy to go after, but I really think that Trump beats Nixon because there's just something about him, whether you love him or hate him, he doesn't care, right? So he doesn't follow the rules. And he's just so atypical in that sense that he gets himself in trouble a lot because of that. And that's great for cartoonists. You know, when someone's in trouble or when there's lots of drama surrounding someone, that's very good for us. And then his hair and appearance is fantastic too. You know,
and for Nixon, it was the nose, and it was fun to draw.
Right.
You seem like a really nice guy, Steve, but you have some controversial things that you said out there, put out there, and you must get feedback.
Yeah, it's weird because I do consider myself to be a nice person, but I make fun of people for a living. It's weird. It is kind of a hostile art form when you think about it, right?
Right.
We're being critical all week long. I like to say that I only go after people who deserve it.
Okay. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. But you do get emails?
Oh, yeah, I do get emails. I could play you some.
Yeah.
It's nice because you know that people are reading. And usually they're not personal. They really aren't. Usually they're people who are upset because you've taken a position that they disagree with. Mm-hmm. So they're just kind of letting you have it, you know?
Right.
When I was younger, I used to get really upset by angry phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
But now I've learned, you know, you're treading in these waters. You're dealing with very, very hot button issues, you know, that people hold near and dear to their hearts.
Right.
So when you trod that ground, you know, it comes with the territory.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can't take it personally.
Exactly.
You know?
Plus, you're in an office where you don't see people, and so it's easy to let your mind just go open and whatever I come up with, and sorry people if you disagree, but this is my idea today, whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you're in competition, in my view, you're in competition with other famous political cartoonists that have been around for a long time, and yet you must be kind of buddies with these people that are all doing the same thing. Do you ever get to meet them?
Oh, yeah, we do. We're a fun little happy tight bunch. There is competition, I guess, but it's friendly competition, you know.
And do you know who inspires you? Who inspires you?
Well, I mean, my most of the guys who really inspired me are no longer drawing, like Paul Conrad and Jeff McNelly and Pat Oliphant and Herb Block. Those were the guys that we all looked up to. You know, and others, but those were the editorial cartoonists who we loved. Guys today that are drawing that I love are Mike Ramirez and Mike Lukovich and Tom Tolles. And
you meet them when you get together. I mean, they don't live in San Diego, obviously, so you have to travel to meetings or whatever.
Yes, yeah. There's a convention every year in a different city, and
Political cartoonist convention.
Political cartoonist convention, yeah. They used to be bigger, but they're still going, and there's a lot of jokes and drinking and drawing that happen. It's fun.
Huh.
Yeah.
How many people go?
Well, I mean, in the old days there were more, so there were several hundred. Now it's you know, between the cartoonists and their wives or significant others, there's 100 or so.
Well, that's pretty
so
good.
It's nice. It's a nice bunch. We meet in a hotel somewhere and, you know, hang out, talk about the craft, talk about trends, show work. We like to compare cartoons, and there's also opportunities for young cartoonists to come in and to meet some of the established guys and get pointers, which is really great. That's kind of how I got started.
Yeah.
And there's even an award that the cartoonists offer called the John Loker Memorial Award, named after the son of Dick Loker, who was a famous editorial cartoonist in Chicago. And John, his son, wanted to be a cartoonist but passed away young. So they named an award for him. So every year we give the John Loker Award to a college cartoonist.
Oh, very good. Now, you try to not duplicate, obviously, what other people are doing, but once in a while...
That happens, yeah.
Can you give an example of when that might have occurred?
Sure. Well, one of the famous examples was after 9/11. And we had this great national tragedy, and I was actually drawing for the San Diego Union Tribune at the time. I had officially taken a position here with this newspaper, but I was living in New Jersey at the time, just an hour away from Manhattan. And we had a lot of people who died in the Twin Towers who lived in Monmouth County. So it really kind of hit close to home. I mean, it was such a national tragedy. You know, everyone was affected by it emotionally. But anyway, I knew I wanted to do something powerful for the 9/12 cartoon. So I knew that it happened, or that the greatest death toll happened there in Lower Manhattan. And what's in Lower Manhattan, or there in the harbor, but the Statue of Liberty,
Sure.
You know, our national symbol. So I knew that I had to kind of combine that. I had to, you know, incorporate the Statue of Liberty. And there's that famous cartoon that Bill Malden did of the Lincoln Memorial with its head holding its head, you know,
in his hands.
Yeah, in his hands. That was done after JFK was shot. So in kind of a little homage to that, I did the Statue of Liberty kind of hanging her head, you know, holding her face.
Yeah.
And I just felt, for some reason, it just came out of me. You know, I wasn't thinking, oh, I wonder if everyone's going to draw this. I just kind of, I did it, and I gave it kind of a dramatic black background, and my editor liked it, and we just thought it was very fitting. So anyway, as it turns out, 75% of the nation's cartoonists did the same cartoon. Yeah, so it's a long-winded way of giving that example, but there have been other cases. So the trick is, when you're coming up with a cartoon, you really do try to weed out the ideas in your brain that you think are going to be too obvious.
Yeah.
You know,
Which
because
is difficult.
I hate it when I do a cartoon and I see that other people have already done it. Another example was the Putin one I did not long after this recent election in 2016, and I just showed Vladimir Putin smiling with an "I voted" sticker on his lapel. I drew that, and he's looking at the camera and he's winking. Well, someone told me that Time magazine put that same image on the cover of one of their issues, like 2 or 3 weeks before I had drawn that cartoon. I didn't see it, you know.
Right.
And I think another cartoonist even did that cartoon before I did. You know? So that happens.
It's going to happen, yeah.
It happens.
Part of it's because you have one day.
Right. And we're all kind of thinking along the same lines, thinking about the same material, and our brains are all kind of, like we were talking about earlier, we all have that cartoon brain.
Sure.
So we're all thinking in a similar fashion. So that's why I try to be as original as possible every day.
Yeah, tough to do.
It's very tough.
Okay, in addition to this, you also have been writing books. Lots of books.
Yes.
And tell us about that. Why do you do that?
Well, my publishing journey started back in 2005 when my boys were younger, and
You might mention how many.
Oh yes, I have 7 kids, and our 3 oldest are boys, and back then I wanted to do something for them. I never thought about doing kids' books until I had kids. So I came up with this idea called Stick, and Stick is this frog who sticks to things with his tongue. And he sticks to motorcycles and cars and planes, things that boys like, because, you know, I had boys, and I knew boys liked frogs. So I guess I did this first book of mine, Stick, for my sons, or inspired by my sons. And that was a lot of fun to work on, and I just kind of kept at it. I just keep doing them.
Now, you did one for teenagers as well.
Yes. So about 10 years after my first book, an editor suggested that I do a book where I compile all kinds of strange drawings that I've done for my boys over the years. You know, no real story involved, just monsters and superheroes and aliens and zombies and things like that. Things that 12-year-olds appreciate. Yeah. And it was super fun for me because that's the kind of stuff I drew when I was 12 for my classmates.
Sure.
Yeah.
So did you draw these at home, and did the kids watch you do it? And
yeah. So they would throw out ideas, And I would draw them, or I would say, hey, wouldn't this be fun? And they'd sit and watch me draw.
Very cool.
It was
Very
great
cool.
fun.
So you do most of your work, your political cartoons here.
Yes.
And at home, you do other stuff.
Right, right.
Play the guitar, watch old movies, but you don't, usually you don't draw unless you're doing a book, right?
Usually not, because I'm kind of spent. I'm too
right.
tired to draw anything else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Chefs don't cook and carpenters don't help build around the house, right?
Right.
Let's talk about your homeless population project.
Okay, great, yeah. So San Diego has a serious homeless problem. We have one of the worst homeless problems in the United States. The newspaper moved downtown about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and in the time that we've moved here, we've noticed here at 600 B Street, there have been more homeless people. The numbers are increasing. So my editor and I were talking, and we wanted to do something a little different. So the two of us came up with the idea of me walking around the city and drawing homeless people. Because it's easy to talk about the homeless in terms of numbers and statistics, but those numbers and statistics are made up of human beings. So we wanted to kind of humanize the problem by drawing these folks and talking to them and including a little bit about their lives, their backgrounds, and their hopes for the future with the assignment.
So to do that, you have to break through this barrier of, oh my gosh, I'm going to go up to somebody who may not want to talk to me.
Exactly. It's not easy, because there are people who don't want to talk to me. And there are people who really don't want to talk to me when they hear that I'm working with a newspaper and their story's going to be in the newspaper.
Right, and their face.
Yeah, so it's hard to kind of be rejected like that when you go up to these people, but I mean, they definitely have it harder,
But then you find people that willing to share, willing to talk, and willing to have you draw them. Do you take a photograph?
Yes, a lot of times I'll take a photograph and then I'll work off the photo. Sometimes I'll draw them on the spot, but I kind of like to have their photo, maybe a little video of them, and I take that back to the studio. And I get their full permission to use their image and tell their story. And the neat thing is, there are a lot of people who just want to talk. There's people who will, they'll be reticent and they just won't want to deal with anybody, let alone a journalist.
Right.
But it's fun when you get to talk to people and when you can hear their story and at least for me it's fun. I mean, maybe not fun, but it's interesting. And I have always been interested in others' lives and what makes us different, but what makes us all kind of part of the same human journey. I know that sounds a little weird,
but the amazing thing that you bring out in them is the fact that they weren't like this all their life.
Well, that's what we want to show. We want to kind of try our best to maybe shed some light on things, explain how someone could go from growing up in a loving family and winding up on the streets.
Yeah. Well, it's very powerful, and
Thank you.
A great thing that the UT is doing. And you're still doing it. You've been doing it for a while now.
Yeah, we're going to try doing it for a year.
Wow, great. Well, Steve, we don't have too much time left, so I'm going to say goodbye, but I just want to thank you so much for letting us come in today and giving us your time. I know you have a timeline to meet, so
Thanks, Jenny.
Good luck and keep those books coming out. It's nice to meet you.
You too.
We're back at the studio, and I'm here with a producer from Pace TV, Marlene Levitt, and she's here to tell us about another feature that coincidentally has to do with Steve Breen. Tell us about it.
I became aware of Steve Breen's contest in the Union Tribune, which he had every week. And what it was he put in a cartoon without a caption, and you would write your own caption in it and send it to him. And so I did this a couple of times, and I won. I was so excited. And as a gift, he sent me the signed cartoons, and which I have framed, and it's really a fun thing to do.
Well, it's amazing because you're lucky. There's a lot of entries every week. He has so many entries, and that's amazing that you won twice.
I know.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We appreciate your interest in PACE TV, the PACE of San Diego. Our all-volunteer seniors group at PACE TV has been in existence since 1978. Throughout those years, we have produced 1,000 shows about San Diego and topics of interest to our community. During COVID, we lost our free public access studio space and were forced to reimagine the way we produce our shows. As a result, we've created a small studio and have been rebuilding from the ground up in order to continue our mission. We are seeking funding to acquire equipment and ultimately have access to a larger production space once again. Over the last 45 years, we've been honored to serve San Diego County in this way and to see the impact many of our shows have made. Your donation will allow us to continue producing high-quality shows as well as train new seniors in all aspects of production and disseminate valuable information to the San Diego community. Your sponsorship lets your community know that you not only support our quality local programming, but also the many nonprofit organizations we feature, while also giving voice to the largest underserved population in San Diego, its seniors. We greatly appreciate all donations, large and small. Please go to www.pace-tv.org to donate or sponsor today. Please email us at info@pace-tv.org. We'd love to hear from you.